What is racism, one might ask? Well, back in the 90s, I remember racism was something that was to be ridiculed. It wasn't really a big deal. People were racist. They had stupid beliefs that one race was superior or inferior to another race. It had to deal with one-on-one interactions, or maybe even group interactions between groups of individuals. Mainly one-on-one interactions. Might be a racist white dude against black people, and might have some words to say, choice words to say to somebody because they were black. But at the same time, in the 90s, it was widely well known that racism wasn't one directional. It wasn't towards one race of people from one race of people. It wasn't only something that a white person could be. It could be the other way around, which makes complete sense because that's what racism is. It's a universalized sort of thing. So it would be if a white person was racist towards a black person, or a black person towards a white person, or Asian towards Latino, or whatever. Now, these things were not a big deal in society. They were just really frowned upon. They were laughed at. They were things to ridicule. And that's primarily how we saw racism in the 90s and even in the 2000s. I remember when I was in high school, I had a lot of friends from different backgrounds. White, me, I guess, Jewish, black, Puerto Rican. I had some choice words to say when it came to our race, but it really primarily revolved around making fun of each other because of these inner characteristics we were born with, and it wasn't even in a serious fashion. It was a joking fashion, making fun of the racial stereotypes. Thought it was hilarious. But most of the time, what did we see each other as? We didn't see each other as a part of a group, as a part of a tribe. Oh, he's Jewish, he's white, he's Puerto Rican, he's black. It didn't have to deal with that. We were friends because we were friends. We liked one another. We liked each other's company. That's how it was. That's how it really should be. And unfortunately, in today's society, that's not how it is anymore. In today's society, it's sort of mutated from racism is something that is a one-on-one thing to a institutionalized thing to a group thing. So for instance, institutionalized wise, the government disproportionately jails blacks or whatever, insert X group here, and therefore the government has laws of which are racist towards certain minorities, which if you look at the books, it's kind of right. There were laws dealing with prison sentences, dealing with, unfortunately, blacks would get longer prison sentences than white people based upon drug offense or something they might have caused that a white person might not be getting the same amount of time for. It might be getting whole lot less time than a black person, and that's because of the crime bill that was passed in the 90s by the Clintons. For what matter, I have no idea, but thankfully, I believe that has since been rescinded by Donald Trump. But then it wasn't about institutionalized racism. Institutionalized racism seeped its way into individual racism. It wasn't actually individual racism anymore. That's not what the left sees it or saw it as when this whole bullshit was starting. It was, oh, you're a white person, therefore you are subject to white privilege. Now, a lot of people back then, they're like, oh yeah, I guess that's right, because this system does have laws that are against certain minority groups, and therefore I am more privileged. It would make a little bit of sense. You know, people would see that and they're like, yeah, I guess I can see that. I guess I have white privilege. And unfortunately, this mutated into something even more grotesque than the assumption that just because somebody is white, because of the fact that the government has certain laws that are against minority groups, that this person is privileged. Now, it didn't take an account to the fact that individuals really, on the whole, don't really have that much say over what the government does. In fact, there's a lot of white people out there, like me, who are against such laws to happen in the first place. For instance, me, personally, and I believe most of the United States believes in the rule of law. Whites and blacks and Latinos and everything else like that, we believe that everyone should be treated as individuals and equally under the law. You know, this is something that was not taken into account, and people began breaking apart. There was the other now. The other, of course, was white people, because we have white privilege due to the laws, regardless of whether or not those white people were against those particular laws that were against minorities, like the prison bill that I had just suggested. So, racism, in the means of institutionalized racism, has become somewhat of a gang warfare on our civilization in the United States. Now, the scapegoat, as I like to point out, in Nazi Germany was, of course, Jews and some gypsies and homosexuals as well, but mainly it had to deal with Jewish people. Jewish people were sent to have some sort of mystical Jewish magic, and they were able to determine the cultural outcome of whatever civilization was in Germany at that time. And at this time, Germany was undergoing through a lot of turmoil because of the Treaty of Versailles during World War I. So in order to get into power, Adolf Hitler scapegoated the Jewish people, said he would solve the Jewish problem one way or the other, because they were the ones that brought up this hyperinflationary point of time during the Treaty of Versailles, which led to the Warsaw, led to what happened in Weimar Germany with hyperinflation. Now, of course, Germans were the high proportionate amount of people in Germany. They were the majority of the country, and the minority of the country were Jews and gypsies. And, you know, this really worked out because Jews had a lot of power in finance and in the media, because Jews, on average, happen to be really good at math. Me, on the other hand, I am part Jewish. I'm horrible at math, so I am the exception. But this went on, of course, for a while, and eventually we get to the Holocaust, which people deny, but it obviously happened. Holocaust, about 9 million Jews died, along with a bunch of homosexuals and gypsies as well. And this was all because of the push that Jews were the center of all bad things and everything else like that. Now, when this all was happening in the United States, with this whole push on white people have privilege and everything else like that. I try to point out the fact, hey, you're doing exactly what they did to the Jews in Nazi Germany. You're saying, oh, white people have privilege. It's sort of what the Nazis did with the Jews. They said, oh, they have privilege because they're in these centers of power, and they're better off than the average German person, not taking into account the fact that Jews were just better at certain things than the German population. So it's very easy to scapegoat them. It just happens to be that the majority of the United States is white, and that is quickly becoming a non-reality. There are more people that are coming into the United States that are not white. And because of the fact that non-white people happen to have a higher in-group preference, unfortunately, due to the fact that they come from different countries that are more homogenous than the United States, they do not have the mentality of most of the natives in the United States of colorblindness and understanding that each individual is to be judged on their merits. And unfortunately, because of this, the media finds a very opportune point where they can demonize white people for sensationalist and political reasons in order to gain the power that they need. Hold on here, I'm getting my food. Now, fact is, we're living in a society now where we have white people becoming a minority in the United States, and minorities that are mostly very highly susceptible to this in-group preference and the push by the media in order to demonize white people. Of course, there's a whole lot of people in the United States that are minorities that do not fall for this bullshit, so I am not talking about those people. Now, because white people are now the scapegoat, just like Jews were the scapegoat in Nazi Germany, white people do not have a say. We're not allowed to speak back because we are the only ones that can be racist and everything else like that. Now, of course, the literal, visceral reaction that many people are having these days, many white people are having these days, is to fight back and have more of an in-group preference. No, let's stay together. We're white people. We do this, we do that, and everything else like that. The fact of the matter is that I think people need to realize that this is all pushed by the media, and they want this. They want this. They want white people to get back together in their own little group. They want the black people to get together in their own little group. They want the Hispanics. They want the Asians. They want us all divided because they're easily conquered by an ideology. Once you have a group of people getting together against another group of people getting together in a civil nation where we're all supposed to be living under the rule of law and understanding that we're all individuals and we're all fighting with one another, they can come by and swoop by, pick their team, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter, and play them off against each other for their own power. I reject all that. I reject everything about that because that's literal fucking bullshit. People are saying, oh, they want a race war, so we'll give them a race war. I say, fuck that. I say, no race war. I say, we call out these fucking assholes and tell them exactly what they're fucking doing. And it doesn't matter if they're coming after you and they say, oh, you're white, therefore you're the only one that can be racist. Push back. I say, push the fuck back. This is not a time to be divided. This is not a time to say, yep, I'm just going to go in my little group and everything else like that and pray that things work, because they're not going to work out. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who wins, quote unquote, because you're all conquered in the end. There are no winners in race wars. None. The only winner in a race war is the people that derive pleasure by pitting humans against humans. This is about individualism versus collectivism. Still was in the 90s, still is in the 2010s, the late end of the 2010s. So no matter what happens, no matter how many times white people get demonized and everything else like that, no matter how many times the media comes after people based upon their skin color, I will not ever be a part of the alt-right or any other group, collective of people pitted against one another. Because the fact is that I have friends that are of different racial groups, and none of that fucking matters to me. And the only reason why I'm bringing it up is because it has been brought up. This is a fact of life and death of the individual. And if we do not reject this bullshit, we're going to be conquered.